Hey guys, it's vf.miniatures Warhammer Tactics series. So today I want to talk about the new rules that are coming to us from the Nephilim Grand Tournament mission pack that was previewed yesterday on Warhammer community website. And one of the most important things that are going to be different is the way that we use command points. And today we'll analyze how that will impact the game. So what's actually going to change? Well, you'll start the game with half of the CPs that you previously had. In Strike Force it'll be 6 command points, and in Incursion games it'll be 3 command points. Moreover, there will be no free relics or warlord traits anymore, so each trait and relic that you have in your army will have to be paid for. So effectively you will be starting the game with 4 command points, a third of what you previously had. And this is obviously huge because for most armies in the game, the command points are like fuel. If you have less fuel, you can't go as far as you wanted to. You cannot buy as many relics and trades before the game. You cannot do as much in the first turns, unless you plan your roster ahead and try to minimize the requirement for spending the command points to actually do the stuff that needs to be done, like killing your opponent's force. But we'll talk about that a bit more in detail later in this episode. All this, however, will be offset somewhat by a doubled CP regeneration rate, so you will get 2 command points in each battle round instead of 1. A command point in each command phase, to be precise. This is obviously still less than you had before, because even though the production of CPs doubled, you still don't get the full 17 command points that you previously had if you did not regenerate any with relics trait or some extra ability. So now you get 6 at the start of the game, minus 2 because you will have to spend the command points for at least 1 trait and relic. Because I don't know any army that can play the game without a single relic or trait. It can possibly be done, of course, but I'm not sure that anyone would want to do that. And then you get 10 command points throughout the game, so in total 14 compared to 17 that you had previously. So honestly, Games Workshop are doing a very strange thing, and they aren't calling the thing that they are doing the right name, because at the start of the 9th edition they proclaimed that everyone will have more command points because now you will start the game with 12 instead of 8. But what they've actually done is made a whole lot of abilities that were in datasheets of the units stratagems, and now every unit has a stratagem that is basically their ability of the past that is now rewritten and must be paid for in command points. And now they are cutting down on the command points that we have. So basically we have lost a lot of abilities, and now we're losing the command points to use the stratagems that were made to replace those abilities on the datasheets. It seems like Games Workshop are trying to get rid of stratagems at all and command points at all, and I don't think that's a bad idea. A lot of players are very uncomfortable with the stratagems and how they work now, and I understand their concerns. And probably if we only had the abilities in the datasheets and the army rules and some extra stuff in the codex, but not stratagems that must be paid for, and we probably only had like a single reroll per phase or like 2 rerolls per turn, it would be much better than having this extra layer of complexity in all of our books and supplements and extra armies of renown and stuff like that. In general, there's quite a popular opinion that the game is too complex and it needs to be simpler. And simpler does not actually mean more boring. It usually means much more fun to play, because you will be able to concentrate more on the game itself and what you need to do tactically and strategically to outplay your opponent than thinking about the 59 stratagems that you have in your books and your opponent can use against you. But for now we have command points and stratagems, so let's continue. Super Heavy Auxiliary Detachment was announced to be free now if your Lord of War choice matches your warlord's faction keyword. So if you take a monolith in a Necron's army and that monolith is from the same dynasty than your overlord or whoever is your warlord in your Necron detachment, then this super heavy auxiliary detachment will be free for you. Previously you had to pay 3 command points for the super heavy auxiliary if your faction was Chaos, Imperium, Eldari, Inari or Tyranids, or 1 command point if it was anything else like Necrons or Tal. And obviously now when the command points are so precious, it's great that you can actually bring the Lord of War choice without paying extra for it. There are, however, things that we, as of yet, don't know. There are characters like Mortarion and Magnus that have multiple warlord traits assigned to them, and they must be your warlord. So, what happens with them? Do you have to pay just 1 command point for their traits, or do you have to pay 3? I hope that it's 1, because it will be it will be stupid, and no one would use those models again. Will detachments have the same prices as they had previously, or will they also change like the super heavy auxiliary detachment? Because now paying 3 command points to run a Vanguard or an Outrider seems even more terrible than it was before. I personally hope that each detachment gets a discount, so Vanguards and Outriders should cost 2 command points to run, at least, maybe even less, and an extra patrol should cost just 1 command point to run. Will the command point farming limit be lifted? I hope not, because even though we will have much less command points, there are still armies that have multiple ways to farm command points, and if the typical 1 per battle round restriction gets lifted, there will be mayhem, because some other armies will struggle to have at least some command points to operate, while others will have a bunch of those in the metagame where no one else has that. There's also a possibility that some missions and secondaries, and Games Workshop say that they were reworked, they may give you command points as a reward at some point, because again, CPs are very precious now, and it's great to motivate players to play the mission better and gain command points as a reward. This is just my imagination. There are no announcements that this will be done, but I hope that it will be, because it's a nice way to bring the 3 command points that they've torn out of our hands back. How otherwise will it affect the game? Well, Games Workshop say that it should eliminate the huge problem of a mighty alpha strike. And to be honest, yeah, to some point this may reduce the amount of damage that one army can do to another in the first turn, but quite honestly, how much of a problem is an alpha strike right now in 9th edition? I've been on a couple of tournaments recently, and the last one I've attended 2 days ago, and I can say that I have not encountered such a large portion of armies that do really rely on a mighty alpha strike in the first turn. That's just not how the game operates right now, with all the line of sight blocking terrain and the distance that is between the players. The main problems I saw there was inherent power of some units that should not be as powerful for their price, and the combination of those units with some stratagems. I'll give you an example. A winged Hive Tyrant in a Tyranids army with a Reaper of Obliterax relic that uses a 1 command point stratagem called Overrun each and every turn. This model is crazy good in melee, like almost nothing else in the game. Very, very efficient, very cheap and extremely fast, with a 17-inch move, and after this model moves and charges and kills eventually whatever it needs to kill, if there are no enemy units within engagement range of that model, it can use an Overrun stratagem to simply run away and move the whole 17 inches of its movement characteristic to hide wherever the hell it wants. Stuff like that is a big problem of 40k right now. The codex creep, when some armies are that much more powerful than others, and some units in particular are a big problem. The Tyranids army will not, if it just loses a bunch of command points, this combo with the Hive Tyrant won't die by itself. This stratagem needs to be FAQ to the 2 command points and only allowed to move like 6 inches after the fight phase and stuff like that. There are a whole bunch of things in the game that have this inherent problem with the level of power that they have. So yeah, the alpha strike potential for some armies will really be blunted, but is it the main problem that the players want the Games Workshop to solve right now in 40k? I don't think so. Because of what happened with the relics and traits, name characters will become very, very desirable, and having access to a powerful name character that basically has a warlord trait and a relic built in, usually with all the extra abilities that the name characters get, will separate one army from another. Give you an example. Previously, it was a great idea to run a Space Wolf successor chapter because you were able to select a much better combination of traits for your army, like exploding sixes and +1 to hit, instead of just +1 to hit and heroic interventions, which are not that incredible, especially when you have a special heroic intervention stratagem in your Space Wolf supplement. But now, when you lose access to Bjorn the Fell-Handed, the Njal the Stormcaller, all those great named characters that don't make you take the relics and traits for them and are good just inherently, it changes the situation completely, because now taking the successor will not be that practical. Martial legacy units will more or less be a thing of the past, because paying a bunch of command points to bring a couple of contemptors with Volkites will be too expensive to do. And with the detachments, as I said earlier, if the prices stay the same, we will see much less of vanguards, outriders and spearheads, and much more of battalions, patrols and brigades. CP farming abilities will be much more important now, because you will be limited only to a couple of command points at the start of the game, and if you have some way to get more command points each turn, it's very, very useful, especially if it's a non-relic trait option, like for example Echoes from the Warp from the Thousand Suns book, a Kabbalistic ritual. Units with inherent survivability will outclass those that require stratagems to survive. For example, you are trying to find a melee unit for your elite slot, and you are thinking about Blade Guard veterans and Centurions. Well, Blade Guard veterans have a great stratagem called Transhuman Physiology, but you will have to pay command points for that stratagem, whereas Centurions, they have a toughness 5 inbuilt, and they have a 2-up save and a 1-up save thanks to the Armor of Contempt that the Blade Guard veterans are missing. So, if you think about it, maybe Centurions are a better choice for you. Same goes for firepower. If a unit is capable to be deadly in combat or in shooting without extra investments in command points, it will be a much more valuable addition to your force than something that requires command points to work. Like maybe if you are an Adeptus Mechanicus player and you want to deal with heavier targets like monsters, you need to take a whole bunch of Honor Guard Dunecrawlers instead of using your Skitarii with enriched rounds. There will also be a whole bunch of minor things that we will only be able to evaluate once we actually start playing, especially in tournaments with these new rules. Like for example, access to the counteroffensive stratagem with only 1 command point left in your turn. Previously you had to save 2 command points in your turn to have an ability to interrupt in your opponent's fight phase. Now you only need 1 command point in your turn, and 1 will be gained in your opponent's command phase. So all in all, the changes to command points seem to be great. I think they will probably change the game to the better. Apart from the paid warlord traits and relics, the first one I mean, I think that was a step too far. In my experience, relics and warlord traits are rarely a thing that actually breaks an army or the game, and it gives you or your opponent a chance to customize their force in order to suit their taste. And I think we'd all hate for the army building part of the game to be or to feel stale. But we'll have to see about that when the full rules come out this weekend. And with that, I hope this video was useful for you. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.